It's August 9th. I'm Ezra Levant, and you're watching Battleground. Hello, my friends. Ezra Levant here. I am back in our world headquarters in Toronto, Canada, after another whirlwind trip to the United Kingdom yesterday. I'm visiting Tommy Robinson in prison from time to time. And the reason for that is, I believe he's being adequately taken care of in prison. I say adequate because there's no such thing as a great prison experience. He's in a heavy maximum security prison in London. They're called the HMP, Her Majesty's Prison Belmarsh, that holds convicted terrorists, murderers. For a while it was called the Guantanamo Bay of the United Kingdom. It's where unlawful enemy combatants from Al-Qaeda were held without trial. So the baddest of the bad are in there. It's completely inappropriate for a journalist to be held there, let alone in the isolation unit, simply for reporting on rape gang trials. I'm visiting him there because I want to make sure he's not abused like he was last time. I don't know if you recall. Can we get the thin B-roll? When Tommy was sent to prison last year, he was sent to a prison called Her Majesty's Prison Only, HMP Only. He was thrown in solitary confinement, starved, and I didn't know this. I did not talk to Tommy when he was in prison last time, and when he got out, I was shocked, as I think much of the world was, but look how thin he was. Look at that. Look at his, he could barely stand up straight. His eyes were sunken. He was obviously shell-shocked. He lost 40 pounds, whereas they stay in the United Kingdom, 3 stone in 10 weeks, and he was psychologically abused. He was kept in a box 23 and a half hours a day. The only half hour he was let out was to be screamed at by the other prisoners who threatened him with death. So the fact that he's in HMP Belmarsh this time, while outrageous from the beginning, at least he's not being starved. At least he's not being psychologically tortured. At least he's getting medical attention. In fact, he gets a visit from a nurse or a doctor every single day, he told me. And the prison governor himself, that's what we call a warden here in North America, pokes his nose in to check up on the lad daily too. So why am I going to visit him? Can we play the time-lapse vid of my last trip, and I'll talk over it. You can just play the B-roll while I talk. So I went to visit Tommy a couple weeks ago, and then I visited him yesterday, and we plan on visiting him again next week, and we will visit him at least 1 or 2 times more during the duration of his sentence. As you may recall, he had a 9-month prison sentence meted out, but because of time served and other formulas, he will serve, to be very precise, 66 days. And I think yesterday was the 28th day of his sentence, so he's coming up next week. He'll be at the halfway mark. We visited him twice. I think we'll visit him at least twice more. Why? Well, because the fact that we're visiting, I believe, is restraining the prison. It's restraining them from any bad behavior. It's making them less likely to engage in misconduct. And the reason I say that is because in the 2 visits I've had, they've tried little tricks. They've played little tricks on me and on Tommy. And they're trivial. They're little indignities. I suppose prison life is full of those. If you're a prisoner in prison, there can be 100 ways in which you're humiliated on any given day, and what are you going to do? Complain to the warden? But even in my 2 visits there, I saw the prison play these tricks. I saw them try and switch the rules for how I could visit Tommy. They wanted to have a big plate glass window where we talked to each other with phones, as if maybe I was going to pass him a knife or something, or like give him contraband. Here's a time-lapse vid we did of my last trip there. I took the exact same itinerary. So this insane 21-hour or whatever round trip time-lapse is exactly what I did yesterday too. Basically from Toronto to Heathrow, and then the express train, and then a car. Very, very long trip just for a quick visit. So in my last visit, they tried to have this big plate glass window. You can put some more of that B-roll up. It's more interesting than me just blathering. They tried to have this plate glass window between us. And yesterday, they made us wait 40 minutes. We had a 2-hour visiting slot. They made us wait 40 minutes before they would take us to Tommy. So Tommy's sitting in his visiting cell. He's just sitting there. He's told he's got visitors coming. I mean, we had arranged this with him. And it's a 2-hour time slot. And they make him wait 40 hours before we're allowed in. What's that? It's not that we were late. It's not that we were last in line. I got to the prison an hour early. I had registered with prison guards at 1:13 to be precise, but they did not let me in to see the lad till 2:40. And even when I was leaving, they would not let me leave the prison. Yeah, that's enough B-roll, thank you. Even when I was going to leave the prison, so I had left the little cell where we were visiting, so it's just now me and the guards. There's 2 guards with me because, I'm a terrifying, very, very masculine man. People look at me and they say, oh, he's going to start a brawl. I get that a lot. So these 2 guards, I said, okay, I'm ready to go now. And I know you just walk out the door. I would show my visitor's pass, and so I would give my fingerprints so they know it's me. I'm not, pretending to be someone else. And I would just walk out. It's 5 minutes to walk out of the prison. But they wouldn't let me go. So I had already left the room where I was with Tommy. I was standing in a hallway with a bunch of bars with 2 guards. I said, okay, I'm ready to go now. Oh, you got to wait. Okay, wait for what? We need a guard to escort you out. Okay, this place is crawling with guards. There must be 1,000 guards here. Yeah, Dad, we need the Zulu unit. What does that mean? I know what Zulu means. Zulu is the name of a tribe in Africa. No, that's what they call their canine unit. There's a lot of dogs at Belmarsh Prison. Some of them sniff for contraband. I absolutely get that. They sniff the visitors. But these look like attack dogs. They look different from the sniffer dogs. Huge German shepherds kind of thing. Maybe they sniff things too. But these were sort of straining at a leash and they were barking. And I could hear the barking. And they said, no, you need 3. Like one canine officer came, but no, they waited for 3. And they made me wait. Wait. I mean, I guess I could have been with Tommy in this time, but they just wouldn't let me out of the prison until finally the 3 dogs were there, like I'm Hannibal Lecter or something. And I just want to let you, there were no other prisoners around. Like I did not see a single other prisoner because Tommy's in the special handling unit. It's just him, Julian Assange, and one other guy who was sort of hollering, by the way, when we were there. And I was just walking down a little courtyard and then a hallway. Like there were no other people there. I was not engaging with any other prisoners. I had left Tommy's cell. I had walked this path several times before. I had already been searched physically, searched with an X-ray machine, a metal detector, patted down. I had removed every single item, my belt, my watch. I didn't even bring a jacket this time because I knew you weren't allowed one. They even make you take out scraps of piece of paper. If you have even a receipt in your pocket, you got to take everything out. I mean, it's really, other than wearing pants and a shirt, I was naked. Other than pants and a shirt, so obviously I wasn't naked. But my point is I had nothing on me. Why did they force me to wait? And what was with the dogs growling and pulling at the leash? If that was meant to scare me, it didn't scare me. I like dogs. I just thought it was super weird and petty. And my only explanation is that the prison authorities were trying to sort of, psychologically upset me. It didn't. I mean, I like dogs. Frankly, I like cops. I'll confess it. If I were to be a cop, I'd love to be a canine cop. Wouldn't that be a great job? So I don't know if they were trying to intimidate me. Obviously, that didn't work. But I think they were just trying to delay me because I had publicly said I had to catch my flight that boarded at 5:10 p.m. So when I left Tommy's cell just after 3, by making me wait 20 minutes, I think that was their weird passive-aggressive way of trying to make me miss my flight. I don't know. If you have a different theory, feel free to share it. Look, I don't care. I mean, I enjoyed seeing the dogs, frankly. If they would have made me miss my flight, I would have been ticked off, but staying in London for an extra night is certainly no punishment. So I've got to think it was some weird attempt to like passively aggressively be mean to me or something for checking up on Tommy. And when you combine that with their shenanigans last time, trying to force me to talk to him through a phone through a plate glass wall, and then this time, that's actually, I know that sounds weird and petty, but that's exactly what I'm worried about, is that some weird and petty decision in the prison will be deployed against Tommy, and we on the outside world won't know. It doesn't really bug me what they say or do to me. I'm a free man. They're not going to keep me in the prison other than delay me for 20 minutes or whatever. But I'm worried that that same capricious lawlessness, that same we've got the power, you don't, we can do what we want and you can't stop us, there's no accountability, there's no transparency, you don't even know who's doing these things. Is it a low-level guard who's doing the decision? Is it the warden himself? Is it political interference from the head of the prison authorities? We have no idea. I can only imagine how frustrating it is to be an actual prisoner and never knowing from whom you're being bullied. Is it an individual cop who just does, a prison guard who just doesn't like the cut of your jib, or is it something larger? I can only imagine how terrible it is to be a prisoner. Obviously, most prisoners deserve to be in prison. Our system says so. Tommy, a journalist, it's bizarre that a journalist, who, by the way, his contempt of court finding was not a crime. It was not a criminal prosecution. It was not a criminal conviction. He is not a criminal. That's not a crime. He's the first journalist in the United Kingdom to be in prison for contempt of court in nearly a century. So to put him in a prison is absurd in the first place. But that's what bugs me, is that I think that if we weren't watching him like a hawk, they would do worse things to him. And that's why we have to do it. And in my little live stream video, I don't know if you saw that, I did a little live stream from the back of the car as I drove from the prison to Paddington Station to grab the train. It made me think of something I learned in high school physics called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And the way I described it yesterday is when you measure something, you change it. So if someone said, have you ever seen what it looks like in the inside of a fridge? I'm just making something up. Well, you never know, because when you open the fridge, light goes on, so it changes. So by measuring it, you change it. If you could actually see in the fridge, it would be dark, but by opening the door, you turn the light on, so you don't know what you would have seen. And the example I was taught when I was in high school was, imagine if there's a couple of dice in a drawer. What do the dice say? If you open the drawer quickly to look, the dice roll around. So by measuring, you change the thing you were measuring. But there was one, maybe I've misremembered my high school physics class. But that's my point about Tommy Robinson. We have now measured, observed, documented, inspected his prison treatment on 2 occasions. And on both occasions, I would say it's adequate, as in health and medical are fine. He's not getting the prison visits he is legally entitled to. And the worst thing that I learned yesterday is he hasn't received any mail since the first day. He's been in prison 28 days, and the guards won't give him his mail. They say counterterrorism has to go through his mail, like friendly British grannies around the UK sending him little "Stay Strong, Tommy" notes like that's a terrorist threat. I don't know. It's absurd to me. Maybe they're building a database of people they're going to spy on. There's 23,000 British jihadists walking around the country, according to British intelligence. But I think they regard little British grannies writing support for Tommy as a higher threat. Anyway, my point is, I think by measuring Tommy, we change what happens. If we were to stop measuring, inspecting, documenting, visiting him, I think they would change. And I deeply wish that I could go back in time and visit him in Onley, where he was abused, because I think the only reason they could get away with that abuse of him, starving him, putting him in a box for 23 and a half hours a day, is because no one was there. So that's my very lengthy explanation of where I was yesterday. If you want to see that video in full or other videos, you can go to prisonreports.com. Let me just make sure that that's all up there now. Yeah, you can see I did like a 20-minute or 40-minute live stream in the car on the way to Paddington Station. So that's my visit with Tommy. And I know some people only care about Tommy, but there's many other things we talk about here at the Rebel. So let me just close on Tommy by saying that was my visit. I'm glad I did it. You know, flying there and back in one day, it's a little tiring, but I feel refreshed. I mean, I had a good night's sleep. We're going back next week, and we'll go back 1 or 2 more times. And if you can help us with those trips, I'd be grateful. You can do that at prisonreports.com. All right. You know what? Let me catch up on my super chats, and then I'm going to switch gears because there's something I want to talk about today. That is Jessica Yaniv. That's this fella named Jonathan Yaniv, who a few months ago decided he was not Jonathan, he was Jessica, and then went around Vancouver asking women to wax his genitals, saying he was a trans woman, and that if they didn't wax his male parts, these female estheticians were bigots. And now that's laughable, but what was not laughable is that he took them to a kangaroo court called the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal. And that abuse of process, which doesn't cost him a dime, the taxpayers fund those hunter killers. That abuse of process led many of these female estheticians to leave the industry, to go bankrupt, to shut down their business, because if their terrible choice was being forced to touch the male genitals of this man who says, no, I'm not a man anymore, I just decided I'm a woman, and if you disagree, you're a bigot. Or being forced to go through the Human Rights Tribunal over the matter, or just saying, you know what, I'm out of here. I thought Canada was free and safe for women, but I'm not. Then that's quite something. Now, I don't see my emails on my laptop with the super chats. So, did you email those super chats to me?
Yeah, it says they went through.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to read them on my phone. It just didn't come through on my laptop. Proud Boys Calgary chips in $7. Says, Ezra, buy Jess a beer. Now, by Jess, I think you mean Jessica Svitsanevsky, not Jessica Yaniv. Jessica, we're going to talk about her great expose on Jessica Yaniv shortly. She earned it after that Yaniv story. I wouldn't have kept my composure half as well as her. Also hire her permanently. Laugh out loud. We did hire her permanently. She came to us as a student journalist, and she had to fulfill a certain number of hours, and she did. And then she went on a short vacation, and when she came back, we hired her permanently. Kevin Bank, $2. Sheila is my hero. Sheila is my hero too. You're referring to Sheila Gunn Reid. She's one of my favorite people in the world. Buska Patriot, £2. Hi Ezra, filmed you outside the Old Bailey. Well, hey there, hello, and I've been outside the Old Bailey far too many times. But hopefully we don't have to go back in any hurry because hopefully Tommy's through that thicket. Bernard Hutchinson, $2.79. Can the BC Human Rights Commission justify itself? Why take Yaniv cases? It's been a while since I've studied it in depth, but my recollection is that the BC Human Rights Tribunal, which is the court, so there's a commission, which would be like an analogy of the police and prosecution. And there's the tribunal, which is just the courts. So my understanding, I haven't looked at this in a little while, is that BC has just the tribunal, not the commission. But the tribunal takes everything. They take every junk nuisance suit that comes before them. And the problem is, like if you were to go to civil court, like normal court in Canada, you have to have a real claim. And if you fail in your claim, you have to pay the other side's costs. That's one of the few ways in which Canada's legal system is superior to that of the United States. In the US, there's so much frivolous litigation, so many nuisance suits, in part because they don't always award costs against a nuisance litigant. In Canada, we do award costs against a nuisance litigant. So let's say you're Jonathan, Jessica Yaniv, and you want to sue someone for not touching your private parts. First of all, you have to find a lawyer yourself. Got to pay a few $1,000s for that. Then you have to go to court, and if you lose, you have to pay not only your own legal bills, but that of the esthetician you were harassing. So that's a deterrent to frivolous lawsuits. Also, real judges would encourage you to settle. In many lawsuits in Canada, they have a mandatory mediation where a judge who's different from the judge that'll hear the whole trial basically says, look, this is a really weak case or a strange case, you guys should settle this or you have no chance. So those natural checks and balances are generally there in our civil courts. And of course in our criminal courts, the prosecution which takes the case, they have to pass a twofold test. Is it in the public interest to sue? And is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction? These human rights tribunals, like the BC Human Rights Tribunal, does not have any of these limits, does not have any of these natural brakes. Or you know that thing in a car that kicks in when you go too fast? I used to have a car that when I hit 150 kilometers an hour, it would turn off the engine. It was called the Governor. And it's a very good name because obviously I couldn't govern myself. I liked to speed too much and my vehicle would just shut off at 150. And I'm glad it did because maybe I would have killed myself as a reckless young man driving too fast. There's no governor on these BC human rights tribunals. There's no common sense, there's no deterrent, there's no natural break there. So someone like Yaniv can file more than a dozen nuisance complaints, and the Human Rights Tribunal says, "Oh, okay, let's have 14 trials." I mean, where's the justice there? There's not a lot of human rights in the BC Human Rights Tribunal. You know, when these human rights tribunals were set up decades ago, they claimed that they would be shields to protect the vulnerable, shields to protect, but they become swords to attack. Yaniv is not a victim, although he certainly plays one on TV. He's a cry bully. He blames you while attacking you. And our Jessica Yaniv, and I know I'm not saying her name perfectly correctly, and I've tried 20 times, I'm sorry. She's great. She did a great job, and I'd like to let's play a few things. Why don't we play the trailer? Can we start with that? Do you want to get the trailer? Because that was pretty exciting. Or you know what? If you have a clip that's what's a good clip? There's so many good clips. It's what, about a 20-minute expose, and it's just been doing very, very well online. Last I checked, it had about 120,000 views overnight. If you got the trailer, play that because it's very exciting. But if you want to play some parts from the expose itself, that's fine because it's so strong. So. Whatever you, okay, let's roll the trailer. Let's take a look at that.
Do you believe in the age of consent? Have you ever had any sexual contact with a minor? Yeah, I have a question.
I'm allowed.
Excuse me.
Don't take pictures of me.
I have.
Are you calling the police?
You're not allowed to arrest me.
You don't think it's somewhat perverted to want to force women to give you services such as waxing your genitals?
I don't feel like just because we're in this industry that we should be forced to do things that we're not comfortable with.
If the person identifies as a gender that they do other services on, then yes, they are entitled to those. Estheticians are trained.
Society is in serious trouble right now.
What the hell is going on here?
This is getting creepy.
I don't even know who the hell this woman is. They're all fake. Everything in one of those messages has been fake.
Yeah, well, that was the trailer. It said coming soon there. Well, we rolled it out last night, and I'm just trying to check our stats here. We put that up last night, I think, at 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time. So it hasn't even been up, like it's been up 16 hours or whatever. And it looks like it's had 125,000 views, and it's a very long, not very long, it's a 20-minute vid, which tells me that it's, that's a lot of people watching it. Justin, why don't you choose, yeah, look at that, why don't you choose, why don't you play a couple minutes right off the top? Why don't you play a minute right off the top? So this is our Jessica exposing the other, quote, Jessica. So let's just play a couple minutes right from the top.
I have.
Are you calling the police? We agreed to do an interview.
Yeah, but can you just stop following me?
I have a question.
I'm allowed
Excuse me,
to go away from my face before I slap you.
I just had a couple other questions for you. Have you heard of Jonathan Yaniv? In the last few months, he's actually gone by the name Jessica. Yaniv, a self-described trans woman, has been all over the news and social media for his outrageous complaints against over 15 salons and estheticians for refusing to wax his male genitals. Yaniv had a gag order placed on these cases. With this publication ban, the BC Human Rights Tribunal aided and abetted Yaniv's ploy to shield himself from criticism and to prevent others in the salon business from being warned ahead of time about his habits of filing human rights complaints. But when the publication ban was lifted in July and his name was out in the public, a tsunami of his creepy past came out. The Rebel is the first to bring you an in-depth, on-camera investigation into Yaniv's activities. For instance, I spoke to a young girl who had uncomfortable and inappropriate conversations with Yaniv when she was only 14 years old. I spoke to an esthetician who was forced to leave the salon industry after her dealings with Yaniv. I also spoke to a member of the trans community about concerns and issues being raised by this story. And finally, I met with Yaniv himself in a confrontation you won't want to miss. I discovered a bully, a faker and abuser of the system. One who even threatened to have the rebel charged with harassment just for sending him a polite email. Watch as we pull back the curtain, remove the makeup, and reveal the ugly truth. The story of Yaniv's campaign against female estheticians was picked up by media all around the world. But how much of it was true? Were these reports leaving anything out? So I decided to investigate all sides of the story firsthand. That's what we do at Rebel. I flew over from Toronto to Vancouver.
Well, that's a good summary of the story to come. I should tell you, while that was playing, I was just looking at the stats, so it's got about 125,000 views overnight. I think that's pretty good for a meaty 20-minute expose. What's incredible to me is there are 4,739 comments overnight. That's a lot. I mean, it's not a record for us, but in one day, I think that might actually be a record for the number of comments in one day. And you know, I keep saying, you know that story by Hans Christian Andersen, this great story. We all know the story. The emperor has no clothes. You know how that story goes. This emperor had, you know, these tailors came to town saying we have the most amazing clothes, most magical new clothes. And but they didn't actually make any clothes, and so the emperor, they said, "Oh, you look great in that new," but it was nothing. It was invisible. But everyone went along with the lie, including the emperor, and everyone saw how crazy it was. But no one dared speak the truth until a child said, "The emperor has no clothes." I mean, you know the story. It's one of those things where we all can see that there's no clothes. We can all can see what's going on, but no one dares to say it for fear of offending the king, the emperor. I think that's what this story is. As Austin Powers would say, that's a man. In our documentary, we interviewed our Jessica interviews someone named Jen Smith, who, in fact, you want to just fast forward to one of those Jen Smith clips, and you can find it, and you can put sound up for a minute just to show. It's someone who I think would be called a transvestite, a man who dresses and presents as a woman, calls himself Jen Smith, but actually refers to himself as he, and very, very interesting comments from Jen Smith, someone who sort of does pass as a woman, but calls himself a man, and that's just psychologically feels like dressing up as a woman. I think what I'm left with after watching this 20-minute expose by our Jessica is that Yaniv my theory is he doesn't actually have gender dysphoria. He actually isn't trans. Rather, it's just a new strategy to pursue his general creepiness. Do you want to get that creepiness clip? Let me know when we got the creepiness clip from Jen Smith. It's a very good point. Is that here's... can you listen to it without playing it? Because there's this part where he says he's a creep, and I just want to play that because there's a lot of common sense there. My point is that when he called himself Jonathan Yaniv, he was always trying to engage young girls in sexual conversation, and who knows if there was anything more. Our Jessica spoke with a girl who says that when she was 14, Jonathan Yaniv reached out to her in a sexual manner. Justin, I'd also like the recordings of the Elmo part. You know what I'm talking about? Just throw anything up with Jen Smith for now, because I want to get to the Elmo thing. It's probably more important. So anyhow, I just want to show you a man who does pass as a woman, who calls himself him, but Jen Smith. It's a funny, funny world, isn't it? Who's willing to speak the truth about Yaniv. Go ahead and put that up when you got it.
As long as you've set up a tribunal like this, you're going to have to entertain complaints like this, and you're going to have to treat every case on its merits within the framework that you've established. So even though I believe that Jessica has psychological issues, that doesn't matter. They have to judge the case on its own merits. If we go back 20 years ago, this wasn't a debate, this wasn't a question. A woman had an absolute right to say no to being exposed to a naked male body, right? But because, again, we've subscribed to this lie, now it's become complicated. My solution, again, is getting us back to physical reality, and that will return the right to biological females to say, look, I don't want to be exposed to naked male bodies, right? Subscribing to this illusion where we're, want to force these women to subscribe to something that they don't believe in is Orwellian. Our society is in serious trouble right now. Everybody has rights. So if, let's say we abolished the BC Human Rights Code and just went with the Charter of Rights at the national level, right? If we abolished that, transgender people would still have rights, the same rights that everybody else has. The only right that they wouldn't have anymore would be to force other people to deny reality. Okay, so my solution would be to abolish the BC Human Rights Tribunal and to, get back to reality.
A transgender person
I thought this was very interesting. That's a trans person, obviously, transvestite, I don't know, transgender, trans something, saying, look, you just don't use trans as a weapon, as a sword, use it as a shield. Don't, who would ever want to pick on that Jen Smith there? Why would you pick on that person? They want to dress that way, they're not bugging anyone else, do no harm to others. It's not for me, but I'm not going to say, hey, you can't dress up. You're a grown person. Live and let live is sort of my philosophy generally. But Yaniv is clearly weaponizing it, using it as cover. Let me know when you got the Tickle Me Elmo stuff. So my thesis, and I think it's Jessica's, our Jessica's, is that here's a guy who for years was trying to get in contact with teenage girls, speaking sexually to teenage girls, trying to get some interaction with teenage girls, and sent sexual messages to teenage girls. I don't know if he was having success or not, but then he discovered, well, if I call myself a trans woman, all of a sudden no one will object to me. In fact, if they do, I'll sick the law on them, and now I can get all the women in the world I want to touch my junk. And I'm going to start going up to all the pretty estheticians in town. And you saw that one esthetician, we blurred her face. I saw the picture of her unblurred. Frankly, a stunningly beautiful woman. Jonathan Yaniv would have no chance in hell at having a stunningly beautiful woman like that touch him sexually. I don't think he would. But if he calls himself a woman and says, now touch my junk, oh, if you don't, I'm going to prosecute you, that is not only wrong, I believe that's a form of sexual assault, but it's so clearly faking it. Anyway, let me show you Jonathan Yaniv before he decided to be Jessica Yaniv. Here's an audio message that he sent a 14-year-old girl, and we know this because we spoke to this 14-year-old girl. She's a little bit older now. And we have captions because he's talking in a funny voice. Take a look at this.
Ask.fm. That's where he first contacted Jessica Rumpel. Rumpel, who wasn't comfortable talking on camera, but was able to give me some insight on how Yaniv operates. Rumpel was 14 years old at the time when Jonathan started sending her inappropriate messages. Not only are these messages grossly disturbing, but listen to this creepy voice note.
I'm alive for Dickie. I'm alive Sissy. I'm alive for Pussy. I love you too, Jess Papa. I love you. You will be go up in there, up in there, up in there, up in there.
Now, Yaniv denies knowing.
You heard our Jessica say Yaniv denies that, but later on in the expose we show he admits. He in another context he admits, in another interview he admitted to it. So I think he's a serial liar. So just outstanding work by our Jessica S. and our team. I I want to show two more videos about Yaniv because it's just incredible. I see MVP from Australia chips in $5. Props to Jessica, the pretty one, for exposing an opportunist. How dare you say that Yaniv is not pretty? Soon that'll be illegal to have that opinion, sir. Why don't you play the New York Fries clip? If you have that handy there. And this is just, I think this guy's a perpetual grifter. Just everywhere he goes, he's just a grifter, scammer, and in a way, he's a predator. He's a legal predator. He's a sexual predator, in my opinion, based on the facts that I've seen. He's a political predator. And just look at how casually he says, "Oh, I've got another human rights lawsuit coming against New York Fries." Take a look.
Some people may say that you're using your transgender identity to get away with things that you wouldn't be able to get away with as a man. What do you have to say to that?
I think that's absolutely disgusting. Why anyone would even say that? You know, like my strong belief is, you know, transgender women are women, and you know, me being trans doesn't really change anything in this whole situation. You know, this could happen to you as well.
Why is it a human rights case in your situation and not for the women that are refusing service, either not comfortable for religious reasons or personal reasons, or not trained in dealing with male genitals?
Yeah, basically, it's a human right because, you know, this is the gender affirming care service, and it's basically, the way I put it is, you're refusing access to a service. Like, I was just at Pacific Center Mall and I went to New York Fries, and this is going to be on my next human rights complaint, but I asked for some fries and they literally said, "Not for you, sir, you're transgender," to put it like that. And
Sorry, who said that?
New York Fries.
Here in Vancouver?
Here in Vancouver, yes. Here in Vancouver. So, you know, I deal with discrimination on a day-to-day basis. It sucks.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that New York Fries said, "We don't serve fries to people like you"? Do you believe that? Like, you know what New York Fries is. It's just, I mean, obviously, you can tell I know what New York, I'm intimately familiar with New York Fries. I shouldn't say intimate, anything to do with Yaniv, because God forbid someone would take that literally. I don't believe that. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. It doesn't ring true. I do not believe that in Vancouver, a most unusual city, the San Francisco of the North, where people of every stripe, shade, hue, orientation, I don't believe that someone would say, we're not going to serve you fries. I don't believe a minimum wage worker, which is probably probably a young immigrant. And Yaniv is a real documented animus towards immigrants, I should tell you. I don't believe that some 16-year-old kid doing a summer job at New York Fries for $15 an hour, or whatever the minimum wage is. I simply don't believe that he said, "We don't serve your kind here." I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I wouldn't believe it from anyone, but I certainly don't believe it from the serial liar, scammer, grifter. I want to show you two more Yaniv clips, and then I am going to leave time for my favorite clip of the last week, something I've watched 4 times and showed a lot of people, and I just can't get enough of it. So I'm going to end with a great clip about buses, and you'll understand what I mean in a few minutes. But before I leave the Yaniv conversation, I want to show you what happens when you ask an accountability style question of Yaniv. And you might be saying, well, what's an accountability style question? Well, a shorthand answer would be whatever the CBC does, the opposite. So the CBC, I'd have to check to make sure I'm up to date. The CBC, questions they would have for Yaniv would be, how hard is it to be a trans woman? Or tell us about some of the discrimination you face at the hands of the evil New York Fries Company. Or what can we do to make up for society's wrongs? Those are not accountability questions. Those are questions from the politically correct media party. Accountability questions are, well, the CBC does some of those when they're interviewing someone like Doug Ford or his late brother Rob, or Jason Kenney, or Andrew Scheer, or Maxime Bernier, or Donald Trump, or Stephen Harper when he was Prime Minister. An accountability question is a tough question you ask that really gets to a contradiction, or a tough question, a tough factual question. The CBC, CTV, Global, no media party in Canada has asked tough questions of Yaniv because they either are terrified of being called bigots or they believe in the trans agenda, which I don't quite understand what it is. I don't understand why no one is. And by the way, that Jen Smith, that transvestite or trans, I don't even know what he calls himself, but I know he calls himself he. You know that Jen he spoke at the Vancouver Public Library, and so the Vancouver Public Library was banned from the Pride March. Can you believe that? It's just insane. I don't even understand it. So accountability questions like, aren't you just a scammer? So we ask accountability questions like that. We've done it. I want to show you two clips, one by our Jessica, and then the other by our Kian Bexty. So here's Jessica. And so do we have the longish clip where both Yaniv calls the cops and Yaniv's mom is really engaged? Okay, roll this clip. It's just amazing.
They believe that you're using your transgender identity.
Can I get police assistance again, please, at 970 Homer. I have...
Are you calling the police? We agreed to do an interview.
Yeah, but I can you just stop following me, please?
I just had a couple other questions for you. Excuse me, why are you enabling Jessica
Do you
think it's appropriate to have a topless swim party with kids?
Don't. You're not allowed to arrest me.
Excuse me.
Hey, call the police.
Excuse me.
Call the police. Call the police. Now. Call the police.
Listen, I don't want you to get upset.
Call the police.
I'm just asking you a question. Yeah.
Mom?
You will be shot. You
Sorry?
station, you will be shot.
Mom?
You are
Sorry.
harassing me. You
No,
are
I'm not harassing you. I'm just asking you a question.
Okay, we see you in court.
Okay, let's really get in here.
Is there a really
Go away from my face before I slap you. Go away.
I don't think it's enough.
You're approaching me now, miss.
Okay.
That's amazing. Justin, can we make sure that's a Twitter native clip? That's just so gorgeous. My favorite part is her walking, the mom walking up to our reporter with the double-fisted middle fingers, walking up at the end, don't follow me. You're coming towards us, lady. Holy moly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Just incredible. Yeah, the mom is a real piece of work there, and just incredible. I think the dad might have passed away, I'm not sure, but boy, that family needs some fixing. I don't know how or what. So our Kian Bexty, who's another young reporter on our team, was out in BC yesterday and had an interaction with Yaniv, mother and son also. Do we have that clip handy? So take a look at this. I'm not sure if we've released this yet, so I'll give you guys a sneak preview of it here. Take a look.
Jessica, would I be able to ask you a few questions? Would you be able to, do you have any,
Go away.
do you have any,
Go away.
do you have any weapons on you?
Go away.
Hey, don't touch
Go
me.
away.
Don't touch me.
No, go away.
Don't touch me.
Get out.
Stay away from me.
This is private
Jeez.
property.
Okay,
you go
you
away.
need to chill,
This
lady.
is private
Chill.
property.
Do you have any weapons on you?
This is private.
I'm wondering,
I will show you.
do you think
in
that,
a minute.
do you
Go
think,
away.
are you expecting prison time?
Listen. You go away.
Are you expecting
You
prison time?
go away now.
Don't touch,
Do you hear
don't
me?
touch me
I
again.
won't touch you.
Don't touch
I
me
won't.
again.
You go away. You are on my private property. Go away.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole thing because I don't think we've released that yet, and I want you to still have some appetite for more. I love the blue blockers, by the way. That's the name of those fancy sunglasses that Mrs. Yaniv was wearing. I don't know if you caught it. Can you play the part where Jonathan runs to get there's a little cart that's slipping away? Watch how fast he can move. He's for a big fella. He can move fast when he wants to. Just play that part again, just for a second. So something's slipping away. Oh, I think it's earlier. I think it's like about 10 seconds. So yeah, go back. Yeah, so there's a cart that's slipping away, and ready. Oh, there it goes. Here, run, Usain Bolt. Okay, do that again. I want to play that clip. Like, that is fast. That's like a, he's ready. And 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Thanks. So the fella can move when he wants to, but he's got the mobility scooter and he's taking that handy bus all around. I don't get that. I mean, the fella can move, but he's in a mobility scooter and he's in the handy, but why would that be? Well, think about it. It's probably free. If you say, oh, I'm disabled, you get a free scooter and you get free transit around town. It's my theory. It's a scam. So yeah, just let's put that, like the exact clip that first of all, the exact clip from Jessica's thing that we played, just that exact cut is perfect if a Twitter native, and obviously we'll do lots of Twitter native stuff with that key and thing. Just unbelievable. Let me see if I got the super chats. Emails aren't coming through fast on my laptop, so I'm going to check my hand phone here. Just an incredible story, isn't it? Okay, let me just get the new super chats. I appreciate you guys chipping in on the super chats. Oh, here we go. Thank you for your patience. Hindu Holocaust historian. Any comment on the idea that Jessica is just doing this to make a point? Well, I think that, as in like performance art maybe, or to show how crazy things are. No. I don't think this is ironic. I don't think this is like double tricky. You know Occam's razor. It's a philosophical rule of thumb that the simplest explanation is usually the best explanation. And I think the simplest explanation is, here's a guy who for years was sexually creepy towards young women, and he just found a new trick. And he's milking it as he does with so many other little scams and schemes. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not in a position to make a diagnosis, but I think it's one messed up family. S. Jadi says, Islam is the puppet masters and has been for decades. I don't know what you're referring to. I don't think there's any Islamic element whatsoever in what Yaniv is doing. In fact, I think Yaniv is a Hebrew name, certainly not Muslim. I don't think Judaism or Islam has anything to do with this story. I think they're just weird. And they're not just, listen, it's okay to be weird. We're all weird a little bit. But I think the grift, the particular scam here, is actually as unreligious and irreligious as possible. To force female estheticians to touch male genitals goes against any conceivable religion. I don't care if you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Sikh, Hindu, whatever. Just the concept of you can't infringe on me, you can't compel me. That there's something deeply problematic there. All right, it's 12:48. That's Aaron Smith, $5. Pretty convenient that he can run, but needs scooter. Probably another pending suit. Yeah, that was sort of my point there. I think that he likes the scooter because he's, when you're fat, it's fun to have a scooter. I've never used a scooter, but I'm fat, and I know sometimes you get tired. But my theory, and again, I don't have any underlying facts, as a speculation, is that I'm guessing that they've gamed the system, and there's some way where if you're disabled, you can get free bus rides. Like you saw him going in that altercation where the mom comes with the double-fisted swears at our Jessica. You could see that Yaniv is taking a scooter. He's going to get in the back of like some bus. I'm guessing that the whole scooter shtick is simply a way to get a free taxi ride on some handy bus or something. You see that? Yeah. Do you see that? So I think the whole I'm handicapped thing is simply a trick to get free rides around town. That's my theory. Let me see. S. Jaddy, CNN logo equals Allah. West, freedom of speech comes from the Bible. Christian will be back. I think freedom of speech is most deeply ingrained in the Western Christian culture, but it also does predate Christianity. But of course, the strongest freedom of speech is in the countries with the strongest Christian tradition in the West, with the United Kingdom and the United States. The UK is losing their free speech lately, as we've discussed ad nauseum. All right, 12:49, I am going to switch, but before I do, can I recommend to you that you visit our expose on Yaniv. It was just so well done by our Jessica and our editors. And you know what? Even since we've been talking, the view count is now up to 128,949. So as we have been kibitzing here online, another thousands and thousands of people have watched it. It's really going viral, and the reason for that is so obvious. I don't even think I need to tell you. It's because the media, part of the mainstream media, the official narrative, the legacy media, the establishment media, they aren't telling the story. They aren't telling the story, and the emperor has no clothes. And right now we have, remember I told you how many comments we had? We're now up to 4,816 comments. So that tells you something right there, doesn't it? 11,553 thumbs up, 139 thumbs down. Comments every few seconds, and I'll just give you one more stat because I've got it all here on my iPhone. I can't. I was going to give you other stats, but the video is so new that I can't. I can't give you more analytics because the video is so new. Okay, so please watch the whole thing on our website. I encourage you to do so. And now I want to end on a lighter note. Someone who, if he ever dressed in drag, and given the United Kingdom and some fancy circles like the fancy colleges he went to, I'm absolutely certain, without even Googling, that we could find images of Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister, in drag. I know Rudy Giuliani, the New York mayor, has dressed up in drag before. Welcome to New York. I think that if you Googled it, and I have not, so this is, it's sort of a weird thing to say without just typing it in, I bet you could find Boris Johnson dressed as a woman. Not because he's gay or trans, but just because that's the world of these posh UK lads and their strange, college clubs and stuff. We know about David Cameron and putting his private parts in the mouth of a pig. I know what I just said is probably shocking to you, but that's what they do in these fancy pants clubs that all the British prime ministers seem to come from. Hey, I'm not speculating. There's no conspiracy theories here. I'm just telling it like it is, folks. So, Boris Johnson, colourful character. I'm glad he's the Prime Minister of the UK. Theresa May was probably the worst Prime Minister. I was going to say since Chamberlain, but Chamberlain was not worse. Chamberlain made one disastrous mistake. But after that, he actually became a loyal and trusted member of Winston Churchill's cabinet. He made a disastrous mistake, and he had the morality to resign over it. And he was still useful to the government and the country, and he served. So I will not say that Theresa May was the worst prime minister since Neville Chamberlain, because Neville Chamberlain, it's like saying, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the theater? But Neville Chamberlain had one disastrous mistake, but other than that, the man was not worthless. Theresa May, the worst prime minister in memory. Boris Johnson, not bad. I like Nigel's style, but I want to show you an interview that the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, former mayor of London, newspaper columnist, general, slightly mad lad, funny hair. He did an interview, and politicians are ready, they're briefed on serious subjects, and someone said, how do you like to relax? I don't like questions like that. I don't care how a politician likes to relax, really. And I don't believe they're going to tell me the truth to that. They're going to have they're going to make up some answer. I really don't care how someone likes to relax in the public sphere. I don't think I do. But here's how Boris Johnson answered that question. And I want to ask you this. There's a phrase in the UK. They use it a lot over there. We don't hear it a lot on this side of the Atlantic. Taking the piss. That's the phrase. Oh, they're taking the piss out of you. It's another way of saying they're pulling a prank on you. They're tricking you. It's a practical joke. You tell me, is this a real answer? Do you think Boris Johnson actually does this? Or was he, even as Prime Minister, on national TV, was he taking the piss? Here, take a look.
On your personal lifestyle, what do you do to relax? What do you do to switch off?
I like to paint, or I make things. I like to.
What do you make?
I have a thing where I make models of. When I was in London, when I was mayor of London, we built a beautiful. I make buses.
You make models of buses?
I make models of buses.
So they're going to be in Downing Street.
So what I do? No, what I don't make models of buses. What I make is. I get old. I don't know, wooden crates.
Yeah.
Right. And then I paint them. And they have two. Suppose it's a wine. It's a box that's been used to contain two wine bottles, right?
Right.
And it will have a dividing thing.
Yeah.
And I turn it into a bus, and I put passengers. You really want to know this?
You're making buses. You're making cardboard buses. That's what you do to enjoy yourself.
I paint the passengers enjoying themselves.
Okay, great.
On the wonderful bus.
Great.
Low carbon. Of the kind that we brought to the streets of London, reducing CO2, reducing nitrous oxide, reducing pollution.
If you weren't Boris Johnson.
What do you think of that? What do you think? The story changes, I think. What do you like to do? I like to paint. Then he says, I like to make things. And then I make models, and I make buses. And then I take wooden crates, and I paint them, and then it's a box with a dividing thing. And I turn it into a bus, and I put passengers on them, and the passengers are enjoying themselves. It's very important for you to know. And he paints the passengers, and it's a wonderful bus. Can I play that for you one more time? There's a tension there. Everything's pregnant. His answers are they're left dangling and teasing you. You do what? And then you change. Okay, I thought you were painting, and now it's a wooden thing, and now there's a divider, and is it a crate or is it a box? Can you play that again?
On your personal lifestyle, what do you do to relax? What do you do to switch off?
I like to paint, or I make things. I like to.
What do you make?
I have a thing where I make models of. When I was in London, when I was mayor of London, we built a beautiful. I make buses.
You make models of buses?
I make models of buses.
So they're going to be in Downing Street.
So what I do? No, what I don't make models of buses. What I make is. I get old. I don't know, wooden crates.
Yeah.
Right. And then I paint them. And they have two. Suppose it's a wine. It's a box that's been used to contain two wine bottles, right?
Right.
And it will have a dividing thing.
Yeah.
And I turn it into a bus, and I put passengers. You really want to know this?
You're making buses. You're making cardboard buses. That's what you do to enjoy yourself.
I paint the passengers enjoying themselves.
Okay, great.
On the wonderful bus.
Great.
Low carbon. Of the kind that we brought to the streets of London, reducing CO2, reducing nitrous oxide, reducing pollution.
If you weren't Boris Johnson.
So did he put the passengers? Like, did he put them? Or did he paint them? And is there just two passengers because of the wooden box for wine? Or was it a crate? Or can a box also be a crate? And did he make the bus or just paint the bus? And are there wheels on the bus? And as long as they're enjoying themselves, the passengers, I mean, I think he was taking the piss. It's 12:58. Proud Boys Calgary, 279. Theresa May, worst Prime Minister since Anthony Eden. Just Add Dragons, $5 for all the good you guys do. Well, thanks very much. Well, thank you for letting me end on that note with Boris Johnson. I have 1 minute left. I'm just going to Google Boris Johnson in drag because maybe he has dressed up as a girl. And my first hits do not show that he has. Whereas Rudy Giuliani absolutely has. Can you grab that quick vid of Giuliani in drag? Because I want people to know that I didn't make that up. Just Google Rudy Giuliani in drag. It's the first thing that hits Actually, I think I just want to show Rudy Giuliani. Now, Rudy Giuliani was doing it, and this was almost 20 years ago, before trans was a thing, when these were just drag queens doing their own thing, not bugging anybody, in bars, sort of Lady Gaga style, like in that movie A Star Is Made. Just, in fact, if anything, they're afraid of being attacked. They're not out there forcing people to do anything. It's just an acquired taste or a predilection or whatever, an orientation or affinity or whatever you want to call it. They weren't out there forcing estheticians to handle their gear. They were just doing. So Rudy, do you have that little clip? You go ahead and show it just for a second.
Found in our video vault, a cringe-inducing comedy sketch they made in 2000. That's Giuliani, then mayor of New York, in drag.
You know, you're really beautiful.
The sketch was for a charity dinner, and it's pretty racy.
This may be the best of all. Oh, you dirty boy, you! Oh!
18 years later, the bromance...
That's funny. Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump are two characters, and that's New York for you. And that was 20 years ago. I tell you one thing, the Democrats are putting up a field of, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Oh my God. Is there anyone in that Democrat field who's not a dwarf? The thing about Trump and Rudy is they got a New York-sized personality. How are you going to beat that with some mumbly-stumbly Joe Biden, with some old socialist kook like Bernie Sanders, with some hypocrite nepotism fake feminist like Kamala Harris? How are you going to do that? I mean, the thing about Trump that people love and hate, the things that gets people revved up for good and for ill, is the guy's got a personality. And you didn't think I was telling the truth when I said Rudy Giuliani was in drag. I forgot that Trump was part of that. All right, folks, well, it's 1:01 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got to go because I got to record my show for tonight. And there's so much going on around here. But until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, wherever you are, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.